Okay. Let's start with the prayers. Om
Sadaşiva-Samarambham Shankaracharya-Madhyamam Asmadacharya-Paryantam Vande Guru-Paramparam Saraswati Namastuभ्यं Vande Guruni Vidyarambam Harishyami Bhavatu Me Sada Om Hana Bhavatu Mahano Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamavahai Shanti Shanti Vasudevendra Yogindram Natanyana Gurum Bodho Vidhiyate.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya. Okay, let's start. Okay, so last class, are you able to hear me clearly?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So last class, we finished all the Anathma topics, right? We negated all that was not Atma and we said, this is not Atma, this is not Atma, this is also not Atma. We negated all of them, classified them under Anathma. And in that process, what happened? Everything that I knew, everything that I thought I am has already been negated, right? All the Panchakosha, the body, the mind, the emotions, thoughts, everything. The whole world has been negated. This dream state, the sleep state, the waking state, all the states of experience, anything, everything has all been negated, right? As Anatma. And we saw in this verse, the Madhyam Shariram, that whatever is the possessed item is different from the possessor. Right? The one who possesses is different from what is being possessed. And so when you look at it, all the Panchakosha, all this body, the mind, the thoughts, all of these are mediums or items that I possess, that I use to interact with the world, engage with the world. But none of these things are me. They are just things I have that I use, right? So the body is as good as your car or as the house. It is an object that you own and that you use in your day-to-day interactions, but that object is not you. And this applies even to the Panchakosha. And this is where we stopped last time, saying that all of this is not me, it is not Atma. And so now the question comes, what is Atma? Okay, so today we will be seeing and trying to understand a little bit more about what is this Atma. So till now, we have been hearing the word Atma, but we have not actually looked deeper into what it is, right? The author has not yet examined what is Atma. He has till now told about everything that is not Atma. And now the main hero of our story comes, right? The main part of Vedanta, the crux of the matter, the most crucial part, what is Atma? And so we can read this now. Atma tarhi kaha.
Atma tarhi kaha.
Satchidananda swarupaha.
Satchidananda swarupaha.
Satkim.
Satkim.
Kalatrayepi tishthatiti sat.
कालत्रये तिष्ठति सत्
चित् किं
चित् किं
ज्ञानस्वरूपः
ज्ञानस्वरूपः
आनन्दः कः सुखस्वरूपः
सुखस्वरूपः
Okay. So the question now becomes, what is Atma? And this is what is being asked by the student also, that what is this Atma? Atma tarhi kaha. Tarhi means then or in that case. So why in that case? Because till now we were talking about anatma, we dismissed everything. So the student is asking, okay, if everything is dismissed, then in that case, what is atma? So that is why tarhi. It means then. Okay, then what is atma? And the teacher replies saying Satchidananda Swarupaha. Okay, now this Satchidananda is actually a compound word and breaks into four pieces. The first part is Sat, then Chit, then Anandaha, then Swarupaha. Four parts. Okay, Sat, Chit, Ananda, Swarupaha. Swarupaha means of the nature of. So this Atma is of the nature of Sat, Chit, and and Ananda. Okay, Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Now, it is important to remember over here that when we say Swarupaha, it means its own intrinsic nature and it is not an attribute. An attribute is something that belongs to an object and that attribute may come and go. That attribute sometimes may not be there, sometimes may be there. It indicates a little bit of impermanency, right? But here we are not talking about something that comes and goes. We are talking about the very nature of this Atma, which is Satchit Ananda. Its own Swarupa, its own intrinsic, inherent nature. And that nature is Sat Chit Ananda. Now, naturally, our student gets curious and he asks, what is Sat, what is Chit, and what is Ananda? And the teacher has given short answers, but we will see in little more detail. And we will start first with Chit. Okay. So we will be starting with Chit. And Chit means the consciousness principle. Chit Swarupa is the consciousness principle. So this Atma is of the nature of consciousness. Now, what is consciousness? Consciousness is that which gives sentiency to the body and the mind. So consciousness is that which lends its sentiency. So if I ask you right now, are you a conscious being? You will say yes. And even to think or even to understand this question, hear this question, analyze this question, and then give the answer that yes, I am a conscious being, you need to be conscious, right? You have to be conscious in order to even understand if you are a conscious being. So that process of thinking, being aware of the environment, being self-aware, all of this is sentiency. Right? We are all sentient beings. Why? Because we can think, we can feel, we can be aware of our environment, and we can respond to that environment also. So this is what differentiates us from, say, the stone. A stone that is outside does not have these features, right? If you talk to the stone is not going to talk back to you. The stone cannot understand. And that is why the stone is an inert object. Okay, stone we say is inert. And interestingly, everything in creation is inert, and only Atma is conscious. And whatever appears sentient in the world has borrowed that consciousness or that sentiency from this consciousness principle. Okay, so what we call as sentient beings, living beings, conscious beings in the world, they all have borrowed that sentiency from Atma, from consciousness principle. And how does it borrow? It is because of the presence of the Sukshma Shariram that this borrowing of sentiency is possible. So the Sthula Shariram borrows life from Sukshma Shariram. And where does Sukshma Shariram borrow life from? From Atma. Okay, don't say Karana Shariram now. The answer is Atma. Okay, so Sthula Shariram borrows sentiency from Sukshma Shariram. Sukshma Shariram borrows sentiency from Atma. And because we all have Sukshma Shariram, that is why we are conscious beings. The stone, on the other hand, does not have a Sukshma Shariram, and therefore it cannot reflect that consciousness. Okay, so this is what is consciousness. And this consciousness, what we call Chit, sometimes we call Chaitanyam, Vijnanam, Jnanam, many words come up in the Shastra. All of this is referring to that consciousness principle, the Atma. And this consciousness principle, we will now study under 5 points, with 5 points. So these 5 points have been given by Swami Paramarthananda, and they cover everything, all the main points of this consciousness, all the main points of Vedanta are covered very beautifully in these 5 simple points. Okay, and now we will see them. So, consciousness, that when I say consciousness, I'm talking about Atma. Okay, so this consciousness is not a part, product, or property of the body. Okay, consciousness is not a part, product, or property of the body. What does it mean? It is not a part of the body. What are the parts of the body? Parts of the body are like your hand, your leg, right? All the various different components that we have within the body. And this consciousness is not a part of the body. Okay, so it is not like your hand or leg, which is a component of the body. So consciousness is not a part of the body. Then it is not a product of the body. What are products of the body? Anything the body produces is a product of the body, right? So your enzymes, saliva, hair, nails, all of these are produced by the body. But this consciousness is not a product of the body. It is not produced by the body. Then consciousness is not a property of the body. What are properties of the body? Your height, weight, dimensions, all these are properties of the body. But consciousness is not a property of the body also. Okay, so this consciousness is not a part, product, or property of the body. Now, there are some people who say consciousness is produced by the brain. Okay, but we say no, it is not, because it is not a product of anything in this body. Okay, and also in science itself, there is a problem with that philosophy. It is called the hard problem of consciousness. You can read about it later. And it is an incomplete and unsatisfying theory. They themselves don't have the full answers. So brain does not produce consciousness, and therefore consciousness is not a product of the body. Okay, this is the first point. Then we move to the second point. This consciousness is an independent entity that pervades and enlivens the body. This consciousness is there throughout the body, and it gives life to the body, and it is independent from the body, as we saw in the previous point. So the best example for this is the electricity and the fan. right? If you see, electricity is not a product or property of the fan. It is not produced by the fan. It does not belong to the fan. It is not a component of the fan. Then what is electricity? Electricity is an independent entity. And what does it do? It pervades the fan. And by pervading the fan, it gives life to the fan in the sense that it makes it rotate, right? So this consciousness is like the electricity in the fan example. Okay, so just like how the electricity pervades and gives life to the fan, this consciousness pervades and gives life to the body. But remember, does not belong to the body, is not produced by the body. Then we come to the third point. Consciousness is not limited by the boundaries of the body. Consciousness does not have a spatial boundary. It is not bound by space at all. So the body has a boundary. What is that boundary? Our skin. Right? We say that, okay, this is my body. And when you say this is my body, you are referring to that which is encased within the skin. Right? So we can say that the body has some spatial limitation. It has only this much space and it is there only so much. There is a boundary. This much is body, everything else not body. But this consciousness does not have that. It is not bound by space at all. Okay, so not just this body, consciousness is not bound by space. It has no spatial limitation. In other words, it is there everywhere. Okay, it is there everywhere. There is nowhere where consciousness is not there. It is there in all the places, in all the space. So it is not limited by any kind of spatial boundary. You can think of the electricity and fan example again. It's a limited example, but it will just help you understand. The electricity is not bound by the body of the fan, right? Electricity is not limited to the body of the fan. Electricity is there beyond the body of the fan also. In the same way, consciousness is also there beyond the boundary of the body, and we can extend this and say it is there everywhere. Then, the fourth point is that the consciousness continues to exist even after the death of the body. Consciousness is there even after the death of the body. This means that consciousness has no boundary in terms of time, has no limitation in terms of time. We call this a temporal limitation. Okay, there is no moment when it is not there, meaning it is there all the time. It was there before, it is there now, and it will continue to be there. And there was no time when it was not there, and there will be no time when it is not there. Meaning it has always been there and it will always continue to be there. So you cannot ask when was consciousness born. The question is invalid because consciousness is not born. It is always there. When does it die? Again invalid because it will always continue to be there. So this consciousness continues even after the death of the body. The body may die. Okay, the physical body, it may die, but nothing happens to Atma. Just like the fan and the electricity. Suppose the fan breaks down. Do you think anything happens to electricity? Nothing. The electricity is still there in that fuse, in that point, right? Nothing happens to electricity. However, the fan does not work because it is broken or it is damaged, whatever, right? So the electricity remains unaffected by the death of the fan. In the same way, Atma remains unaffected upon the death of the body. Okay? So no limitations in terms of time. So no spatial limitation, no time-wise limitation for this Atma. And the fifth point is that this surviving consciousness is not accessible because of the absence of the body medium. You require some medium in order to recognize this consciousness or be aware of this consciousness. A medium is necessary in order to reflect the consciousness. Again, the best example is the fan and the electricity. When the suppose in your house you have to check, is there power or not? There's no power. What do? What will you do to check if there's power?
Switch the fan,
Switch on the lights.
Use a tester.
You will use something. You will either switch on the lights, see if the light comes on, or you'll switch on the fan, see if it comes, or maybe there's a fuse that is supposed to be lit, and you will check that fuse, see if that fuse is lit, which is basically nothing but a light. If the light is there, power is there. If light is not there, power is not there. Suppose none of these objects are available for you. There's no fan, there's no light, there's no that fuse light. But all the fuse points are there, but these objects, these devices are not available. Is there any way that you will know whether electricity is there? How
No.
can you know if electricity is there if you don't have any of these devices? It's not possible to know, right? Finally, even if you say, okay, I'm just going to put my finger into this socket and see.
I was just thinking of this
Yes,
only.
but even in that case, your finger is the device by which you get to know. If you get a small electric shock, it's because your finger and the body acts as a medium, acts as a device to conduct that electricity, and that is why you get to know. If you don't have even this finger or body medium, is it possible for you to know if electricity is there or not there?
No.
No.
No, not at all, right? In the same way, for this consciousness to be accessible or recognized, you need a medium, and that medium is this body mind sense complex. Okay, so the body mind sense complex, what we call this, BMSC, this is necessary in order to cognize about consciousness. Without body medium, there is no way that consciousness is accessible. Okay, it is not recognizable if you don't have the body and mind. So these are the 5 points of consciousness. Okay, I'll stop here for any questions.
Yeah, can I ask?
Yeah.
Yeah, Megha ji, you were comparing Atma with electricity. Electricity, we can just switch off the, what do you call, switch, and it is off. But like Atma is like, we cannot switch it off. It's there, it's very much there.
Yes, and that is why all examples are limited. Don't think beyond what is given in the example, then you will run into problems. If you start thinking, okay, electricity travels only in a wire, electricity can be switched off, I can pull out the plug, I can pull out the fuse, there's going to be a problem. The example is limited to the fan and electricity relationship to help you understand.
Okay, it's a basic like example.
Sorry?
It's just a simple example, like normal.
All examples are that way. If you think beyond the scope of the example, there's going to be a problem because there is no example that will give you 100% exact analogy. They're all limited.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
Medha ji,
Yeah.
as you said, consciousness is one, but every body, mind, sense complex is different. So how should one, every body mind sense complex use consciousness in such a way that you can use it to the best of your capability?
What do you mean by the of capability?
Like just taking the analogy of electricity and a device. So like there is a fan and there is a microwave. So both of them function differently. But
Yes.
if a microwave is not taking as much of electricity, then the microwave doesn't function properly. Or if the fan doesn't take as much of electricity as it is being provided, then it will not function properly. So
And so who's why do you think that happens? Is that because of electricity or because of the nature of the fan?
the nature of the fan or the nature of the microwave.
Okay. And if the microwave is not working properly for whatever reason, do you fix the electricity or do you fix the microwave?
Fix the microwave.
That's your answer. If you
Yeah.
feel the body medium is not working properly, that has to be addressed.
So basically it's the body mind sense complex that has to be addressed, not from the consciousness level.
No.
Okay.
And even then, I will ask you a further question. What is the purpose of fixing that? Why do you want to fix?
Mm.
To get full potential of the consciousness.
What does that mean? Full potential of consciousness.
And full
Because we want the
realization,
equipment to work.
full realization of the.
Is the equipment not working right now? If the
It is,
equipment is not working,
but
you
it
will
is
not
not.
get to class.
It is working, but probably it's not working.
To utilize the
As
full potential of the equipment.
yeah.
Okay, and what is that? What is that purpose of having that perfect equipment?
Medaji, every equipment needs the certain level of electric current that is measured in ampere. So it is not connected to Atma like that. It is a drive. We can consider it as a driving force. Not we can measure in volume or some other measures.
Okay, all that is fine, but tell me, what is the purpose of maintaining a perfect body or a perfect mind? Perfecting the equipment.
It
Why?
is an
That
alignment.
the consciousness can be reflected in the purest form, in the complete form, and one can be, because the whole purpose of this is to go and to understand that I am Brahman and recognize and be the consciousness itself. So the body mind sense complex is required to understand this particular fact.
To realize that without the underlying truth, nothing exists.
Okay. So the point is to understand that I am this consciousness. So what do you need then? In what way should you be tuning this equipment or, working on this body and mind? In what way? If this is
The
the purpose.
reflecting consciousness will itself reveal the consciousness through the mind and the intellect.
Okay. So what do you need to do?
Remove the impurities,
Yes.
remove the obstructions,
Remove the obstruction.
obscurities remove.
Yes. So when you talk about fixing the microwave or the fan or whatever, it is in a way, okay, similar to the what we are doing with the body. But you have to understand the purpose and you have to understand what exactly we are doing. The purpose is to realize that I am this Brahman. I am this Atma. I am this consciousness. And note that I say realize I am conscious. I don't say become consciousness. You are already consciousness. You just don't know. And therefore, you need to know. How do you know? Through Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. And what is it that is blocking you from experiencing the benefits of knowing that you are Brahman? The impurities in the mind. So those have to be addressed, those have to be fixed. So the whole purpose of perfecting the equipment, if you want to call it, is simply this: removing those impurities through different sadhana. And once that impurities are removed, then you are already consciousness. There's nothing more that needs to be done. Okay, this is the point. So,
Medaji, one question.
yeah,
From where this personal identity or a trait comes in? The consciousness, can we add the sixth point that it is universal without any trait, particular trait? From where it creeps in?
which the self, the misconception?
Yeah, there is a individuality that person. I am a person, not the presence. That ignorance.
Yes, that is the nature of the creation. It has been there from time immemorial. It is beginningless, just like Atma. The only difference is that this ignorance can end, and it will end upon knowledge.
So is that ignorance equal to Maya?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Medaji, I have some doubt in this fifth point. We have said it is a surviving consciousness, and other times we are saying consciousness. So what is the meaning of this surviving consciousness?
It is referring to Atma itself. It is just that everyone thinks that Atma dies just if the body dies, right? It does not.
Hmm.
It was there before the body came, and it will survive after the body goes. That is the point. That is all.
Okay.
Namaste, Medaji.
Yeah.
Medaji, what is the difference between awareness and consciousness?
When we say consciousness, right now we are talking about this consciousness principle. The principle, that is important. We're talking about the Atma itself. When you say awareness, we can say, in English, actually, there's not much clarity, but I would say awareness is probably, you can equate it to reflected consciousness.
Medaji, even when one is alive, the consciousness is sensed by the subtle body, right? Mind. So after death, upon death also, it will be discernible by the mind, subtle body.
The subtle body needs a physical body to work. Your Sukshma eye cannot see without the Golakam eye.
Okay.
So without that, it will not perceive. It is there, Sukshma Shariram is there, but it requires the physical body in order to perceive.
Now, will there be any awareness in the Sukshma body is the question.
It needs the physical body.
Okay.
No awareness.
Medaji, still it is not clear. Can you explain me a little bit more? What
Have
is awareness and what is consciousness?
Have you studied about
How
reflective
can
consciousness? RC, OC?
Yeah, but I don't remember right now. So,
Then you need to go back and revise, because I would say awareness is equivalent to the reflected consciousness, the consciousness that is reflected of the mind. Therefore, that is awareness. But what we're talking about, consciousness principle, that cannot be experienced or, in perceived in any way.
and this consciousness and Atman is the same thing, right?
Yes.
Okay, and how one can practice the consciousness or perceive it? How?
What do you mean by practice consciousness? You have to be very clear with your words, because otherwise I don't understand.
So what I mean is like how one can know like that I am the conscious right now.
Are you conscious right now?
Yes, I'm talking.
That is all. That is reflective consciousness. Beyond your thoughts, that which gives life to thoughts. What is that? Think of the source of your thoughts, or think beyond the thoughts. The thought is just, an object that kind of distracts you. But just leave the thought. Let the thought come and go. But what is that which gives life to that thought? Think deeper. Okay. And how to know about consciousness? What you are doing right now is knowing about consciousness. by attending this class, right? By studying the Shastra.
Oh, Medaji.
Yeah.
Okay, can I say?
Yeah, please. I'll take it
Okay.
after you.
Okay. Actually, it is funny when you say that think beyond the thought. But in the fifth, I had some other doubt in the fifth point. So you said the surviving consciousness is not accessible. So can we say the ever surviving consciousness?
Yes, ever surviving consciousness is also correct.
Okay, thank you.
Medaji, I am sorry, I'm asking you to repeat something, but Raviji used to say, the sun and the water, that I'm a little unclear of. So there is a reflected consciousness and there's the real one. So, and there's a short form to it. So if you can just brush that up, please. And you just said that, I think the RC is equal to the
RC
OC.
is reflected consciousness. OC is the original consciousness. Just
Okay,
like
so sun is the original consciousness.
sun is like the original consciousness. The reflection
Okay.
that you see in the mirror, that is the reflected sun, which is equal to the reflected consciousness. And for the reflection to be there, you need two things, right? One is the original sun and one is the mirror. So the reflecting medium and the original conscious or original light, whatever it is. So that is the relationship. So when
Okay, there are three shortcuts to this, short words that he gives. One is RC, one is OC.
RM, reflecting medium.
RM, okay, thank you.
Okay. There's actually one more example for this fifth point.
So sorry, Medaji, the reflective medium is the water?
Yes, or the mirror.
Or the mirror, okay, or the mirror.
Okay, so there's one more example for this fifth point. So for those of you who know and like physics a little bit, you might find this interesting. So, have you ever seen photos of deep space, outer space? It always appears dark, right? Does it mean that light is absent in deep space? Or we'll talk about the space between the earth and the sun. Okay, if you've seen photos, it always appears dark over there, right? Between the earth and sun, the space there appears dark. Is it because there is no light over there?
No, it's because there is no other object to reflect that light.
Absolutely. So in between the earth and sun, light is there, right? The light is traveling from the sun to the earth. And yet, if you see photos, it is dark over there. Why? Because it is not because light is not there. Light is very much there. It is traveling towards earth. But what is not there is anything to reflect that light. Even if there is a small little planet or little, rock, chunk of rock, something is there that will reflect the light. So in the absence of a reflecting medium, even light is not visible. You need some reflecting medium, some object that will reflect the light in order for you to perceive that there is light. In fact,
But in the normal room, like you have light, if nothing is there,
one minute. So in fact, all light that you see in the world is reflected light. You cannot see only light, pure light. It is not possible. Whatever light is seen has already been reflected off some object. Even what we see in the sky, the reason we can see brightness in the sky and all around us is because of dust particles in the air. They're very small, almost microscopic, but they also reflect the light, and that is why we see. Whereas in deep space, none of this is there. There is no dust, there is no microscopic particles, there's no larger objects also. Where the larger objects are, you can see those because they reflect the light. So all around in deep space, there is light coming from the various stars and different sources, but we can only see the ones that are reflected. Yes, now you can ask. Yes.
Meetaji, Lata here. Question that I have is when we are in deep meditation, we also see some kind of color or a light, right? What is that? Is that also reflected consciousness itself?
No, that which allows you to see that is reflected consciousness.
I didn't understand.
How do you experience that? What is the very substratum of all experiences? The experience is never the consciousness. Okay, this is another
Okay.
point that I was going to talk about. It is called Drik Drishya Viveka. What is experienced is different from the experiencer. And when we say consciousness, consciousness is the experiencer. And whatever you experience is the experienced. And they are always different. So whether it is in meditation, whether it is in waking state, whether it is in dream state, or even in deep sleep state, whatever you experience, none of that is consciousness. That which allows you to experience, that which is the witness of those experiences, that is the consciousness.
So what is that over here? Is that which allows us to experience, is that Atma?
Yes, the consciousness.
Okay.
You have to look beyond the distraction of the thoughts. Usually,
Okay.
I'll give you an example. If I do this and I say, what do you see right now? What is this?
Your hand with the fingers, your palm.
Reflected light.
Yes, there are two things. There is the hand, and there is the light that allows you to see my hand, right?
Yeah.
Right. And every time I raise my hand or I hold some object, immediately our attention is grabbed by the object. You immediately think pen, you immediately think hand. Nobody ever thinks light, and therefore I see. You understand the difference?
Yes.
That is the point. All the thoughts are what immediately grab our attention. We get distracted, we get lost in the thoughts. And the thoughts take different shapes, they take different form, different nature, about different things in the world. Whether it is a meditation thought in the form of some light or some experience in meditation, or whether it is some object that you see outside, finally, all of them arise in the mind as thoughts, right? Finally, it boils down to a thought in the mind. And we get distracted by focusing on the thought. Just like if I raise my hand, you get distracted by the hand. But you're not supposed to be thinking hand. You're supposed to be thinking the light that allows me to see the hand. In the same way, that which allows that thought to be known by me, that is consciousness.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, Meeraji,
Meeraji.
essentially this means that all thoughts are therefore objective only in understanding, is it?
Objective and understanding?
They are objective. There is nothing subjective about a thought. The
Yes.
subjective aspect of it would be reflected because of the reflected consciousness only. The
Yes.
reflected consciousness allows the
Very
perception of subjectiveness in an objective thought. Is that what it means?
The Atma is the very subject, and the thought is an object.
Right.
Thought is jada, inert,
Right.
and it is made sentient or lent sentiency because of Atma. And therefore, that is why you can never experience Atma. Okay, this is an important point that must always be remembered. You cannot experience Atma. Why? Because it is the very subject itself. So to give you an example, suppose, this fingertip. With this fingertip, if I put it on this pen, let us say, I can feel the pen with the help of this fingertip, right? I can feel that this is a hard surface, it's a smooth surface. So with the help of the fingertip, I'm able to feel the pen. With the help of this fingertip, I can feel any object in the whole world. What is the one thing that I cannot feel with this fingertip?
The finger
The
itself.
fingertip.
Yes, the fingertip cannot feel its own fingertip. This fingertip can never feel itself. It can feel every other object in the world. But is there any way that this fingertip can feel itself? That very same fingertip, can it feel itself?
No.
Is it possible? And that is the subject-object difference. This is the subject of feeling. And any object I touch, that is the object of knowledge. That is the object that I come to know about. I can use this fingertip to touch all the other fingertips also, but it can never touch itself. Do you understand? The subject can never experience itself. Same with your eyes. Your eyes can see every object in the world. What is the one thing your eyes cannot see?
Don't see themselves.
They don't see themselves. Maybe you can see a mirror, but remember that the mirror is a reflection. You don't see your own eyes, you just see a reflection of your eyes. And that is the closest you will ever come to seeing your own eyes. But your eyes can never see themselves. Why? Because it is the very subject of seeing. The subject can never experience itself, it can never see itself. And therefore, in the same way, Atma, the one who knows, the one who is the very experiencer, the very knower, can experience everything else, but never itself. And therefore, by this logic, whatever you experience is not Atma. If you are able to experience it, it is not Atma. Even blankness, even, for example, deep sleep. In deep sleep, it is a state of blankness. There is no experience there, there is nothing there. But even that is an experience. And the one who experiences that is the experiencer. Okay? And therefore, you can never experience Atma. Atma cannot be experienced.
So, Meghaji, in short, your Atma can feel everything, experience everything, but you cannot experience and feel your Atma.
Your Atma?
I mean, like Atma.
Atma. Okay, when you say your Atma, it's a direct contradiction. It means it belongs to you, therefore it's not you.
I know. Sorry.
Medaji, Atma being universal, why can't one person experience another person's experience?
It is because it's like the example of two fans. If electricity passes in this fan, why doesn't that fan rotate? It is because it's the nature of the device, right?
Yeah.
That's all.
Thank you.
Just a follow up on this. What happens once I realize about electricity? Once I realize I am consciousness.
Then you realize that you are not the body, and therefore the problems of the body are not your problems. And so you experience, that is why we say moksha. Moksha is equal to the ultimate bliss. That is why we are trying for moksha, right? Because we want to end the suffering. As long as you think you are jiva, as long as you think you are this body, as long as you think you are this individual, all the problems associated with this. If the body falls sick, you think I have fallen sick. If there is some problem, you think I have this problem. But is it you who has the problem? or this body mind sense complex which has the problem?
So moksha also is a myth, like suffering. Enjoyment is also a myth.
Moksha, how is it suffering?
No, because you are experiencing the
Also
moksha.
suffering. Why are we trying then?
So as an experience, it amounts to myth.
There is, if moksha is also suffering, then why to try? Already we are suffering. It's like trying for more suffering. What is the purpose? There's no need, no? If you just simply stay in one place, enough suffering will come.
No, what I mean is, if one consciousness, in order to experience itself, it needs some instrument. That is why the moksha and opposite of moksha, both all are
Yes.
manifest.
I think the word you're looking for is mithya.
Mithya, yeah. That is what it is.
Yes. You need the body, you need the reflecting medium, even for moksha. And therefore, mithya. Only Atma is Satyam, finally. Yes.
Oh, Medaji, I want to know this fourth point, that it is continue to exist even after the death of the body. So I want to know if a human body's Atma goes into animal, I mean, you get a birth of animal. So does the same Atma travels in that body?
Which is the component that travels?
Atma.
Anybody else?
The Sukshma Sharira.
Sukshma Sharira travels. Atma does not travel. Why does Atma not travel? Anybody can answer?
It's Sarvagataha already. It's everywhere.
If it is Sarvagata,
It is beyond space and time.
Where will it go?
yes, where will it go? If something is there everywhere, where is there for it to go to? If it is there everywhere, how can it go anywhere? It is already there. So the one that travels is not Atma. Atma cannot travel, cannot move because it is Sarvagataha. Sarvagataha means all pervading. It is there everywhere. If something is there everywhere, how can it go there? It is like saying, okay, I'm in my house. And somebody says, okay, go to your house. And you say, no, I'm already in my house. How can you go to your house if you're already in your house? Do you see? So this Atma is there everywhere. And therefore it cannot go anywhere because it is already there. So the Atma cannot move, it cannot travel. And so what travels is the Sukshma Shariram.
So that means Atma remains here.
It remains here and everywhere. So the correct statement is it remains here also.
Okay.
So when SPG likes to say this, so sometimes people say God is in Vaikuntha. Sometimes people say, right, God is in Kailasha or God is in Vaikuntha. So the correct statement is God is in Vaikuntha also. Okay, meaning he's there everywhere and also in Vaikuntha. Okay, so that is the point. It is consciousness is there everywhere. Yes, next. Chandrakanta Agarwal. Your hand is raised. Okay. Anybody else?
Can I say something?
Yes.
I just wanted to say, like, the concept of Atma that we are saying, that it is all pervading, it is there in everybody, all living beings. Can we compare it to, like, supposing we have a big chart from which we make different cutouts? I could make a cutout of a woman, a man, a dog, a donkey, a tree. So all of them have the same chart paper, but the shapes and the forms are different.
It works to an extent, but what is the problem with that? That when you cut out something from the chart paper, there is a hole in the chart paper, isn't it? You have
Yeah,
void over there. But does that
yeah.
happen in Atma? Purnamadam Purnamidam. That is
So
also
it remains.
it's also Purnaha. And from that
Okay.
Purna, from that infinity, this infinity is born. And what remains is infinity alone. And therefore, no void.
No
Even,
void.
even though the world is born from that, there is no void there. There is no deficiency there. That is the meaning of Purnamada that we chant at the end of every class.
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
chart paper example does not work because there is a hole in the
Come.
chart paper after you cut out all the shapes.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Medha ji,
Yes.
we have read that consciousness is self and self is God.
Yes.
So when we gain knowledge, we are self-realized.
Yes.
Then what is self-realization if we can't experience consciousness?
That knowing that I am the consciousness, that is self-realization. And you know, it's very interesting. Note this word, self-realization. It does not say self-becoming. There is no becoming, there is no transformation. It says realization. Realization means what? To know. Meaning you are already that. You just don't know. So once you know, you're self-realized. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Om Medha ji,
Yeah.
can I ask?
Yeah.
So I had put it on the chat. Does this Wi-Fi example work for Atma? Because it's all pervading, Thanu, not moving, not going, and yet you have different devices to express the Wi-Fi or the Atma in whichever way. Does that work?
It could work.
Of course, with limitations.
Yes, of course, with limitations.
As an example. Yeah, as an example. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, June, your hand is raised.
Ometaji. So when we say Sarvagataha, we mean that Atma is all pervading, like omnipresent in terms of space. I was wondering if there is a Sanskrit term that represents the same concept, but in terms of time.
Nitya, eternal.
Nitya.
Nitya.
Okay, thank you.
Nitya, Nitya.
Thank you, Metaji.
Okay, so we can stop for today. It's time up, and we will see the other 2 points, that is Sat and Ananda, in the next class. So before we close, so you can just see this equation, a very simplistic equation. So whatever is mine is not me, is anatma. And this is what we saw in that Madhyam Shariram Atmana Bhavati, right? That line where if it belongs to me, it is not me, and therefore it is anatma. So which implies what? Me means Atma. I am Atma. And what is that Atma? Now we are talking about it. That Atma is nothing but Chit. It is nothing but consciousness. Consciousness principle. Okay. And if you have heard of Mahavakyas, the great equations in the Upanishads, this is what they are trying to tell. Okay, so all the Mahavakyas are simply equations bridging the gap between the Jivatma and Paramatma. They are telling you that you are this consciousness, you are this Brahman, this Chit, consciousness principle. So these are the 4 most famous Mahavakyas. It says Prajnanam Brahman, consciousness is Brahman. Ayam Atma Brahma. The self is Brahman. Self means here Jivatma. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. Tattvamasi. You are that. You means Jivatma. That means Brahman. Okay, so you are that Brahman. You who thinks you are Jiva, you are actually that Brahman. And so if you combine all these equations, what you get is that you is equal to I is equal to Brahman is equal to consciousness. Okay, but when you take you and I, remember we are not comparing bodies, we are comparing from the consciousness point of view. And so this whole world, everything in creation is nothing but this Brahman. This Brahman is not different from Atma, and this is nothing but consciousness principle. And so they all become equivalent words. We are talking about the same entity. Okay? So with this, we'll stop.
Excuse me, Metaji, one question. I just missed out on it. You said the 4 Mahavakyas bridge the gap between the body and Atma. What was it you said? I missed it out.
Jivatma and Paramatma.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll conclude today's class with the final prayers, Purnamada. And now you know the brief meaning also of Purnamada. So you can think on that, meditate on that.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnamada Purnamevavasishyate Om Shanti Shanti
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Namaha Hari Om
Tat Sat.
Thank you. Thank you, Medaji.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Medaji.
Thank you, Medaji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Medaji.
Thank you. Thank you, Medaji.
Bye-bye.